Good evening, everyone. A warm welcome to the Creative Arts Academy. We are gathered here to start the pre-launch events of Dramebaazi International Arts Festival for the Young 2021, and this is our fourth edition. Last year, thanks to the challenging times and the pandemic, we went online, but there was a ray of hope in that. We got connected to the people from all over the world, not only artists, but children, youth, and this time their participation is much more. In fact, apart from Shaili Sathyu, my co-curator, who I'll introduce in detail, but also the Creative Arts Academy Youth launched their project Youth Connect recently, and it was them who decided about the theme of this year's Dramebaazi. They've been a part of the management, the curation, the production, and organization of Dramebaazi since its inception in 2018. Dramebaazi was started in 2018 with my co-curator Shaili Chatterjee Dutt, who in fact thought of the name, and it ran for 2 years in a physical space, having people and artists from all over India, craftsmen, artisans, working with children for over a month, and since last year we've gone international. It is a kind of culmination of process-based work for us. We work with children and youth throughout the year on various subjects, topics, different kinds of projects, and then this becomes like the time to celebrate arts along with everyone else who are continuously working with children and youth. I'm very excited to have my co-curator, Shaili Sathyu, with me. She is the artistic director of Gilo Gileri, Mumbai, and they do some amazing, meaningful work for the young audiences. So they create theater for young people. I welcome you to the very first webinar of Dramebaazi, which is being done in collaboration with Women Indian Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Arts Leadership Council. Beena Unnikrishnan, the president, is traveling. I, as the National Vice President, welcome you on behalf of Wiki Arts Leadership Council also. We launched the International Arts Summit last year, where in fact Wiki Arts was also launched. And this year we are continuing that project, that legacy, and we are hoping to take it a long way. What concerns us the most is what is the role of arts in our life? Does it even exist, or does it play any role at all? Is it peripheral? Does it affect us? How does it affect us? So our first webinar is addressing the issue, embracing arts in the childhood, a path to self-discovery through arts. And I welcome you to that. I have Abanti Banerjee with me, who is the program officer at the Creative Arts Academy, who will be giving further introduction. But before that, I welcome Shaili to maybe say a few words to our audiences.
Thank you, Ramanjit, and welcome to everyone from whichever part of the world they are logging in from. I'm just excited to be part of this amazing panel, and I hope to listen more and speak less. So I wouldn't say too much because we have a very short session. So over to Abanti, and warm welcome to everyone here.
Thank you so much, Shaili ma'am, and good evening to everyone. So we are going to talk about and learn about how arts can be a process of self-discovery. And I would like to introduce the panelists to all of you. From what I see in my screen, I have Paula McFetridge, who is the artistic director of Kabosh from Belfast, Ireland. Paula McFetridge has been the artistic director of Kabosh since 2006, a Belfast-based theatre company committed to challenging the idea of what theatre is, who it is for, and where it is staged. She is a fellow of Salzburg Global Seminar Session 532, Peace Building Through the Arts, and it was made the Belfast Ambassador in recognition of utilizing the arts to tackle different issues, and won the Northern Ireland Tourism Board Hero Award for her work in cultural tourism. A warm welcome to you, Paula. I hope you have a lovely webinar and we get insightful conversation and insightful things to learn from you and from your conversations here. I would want to welcome Kirtana Kumar as our second panelist, again from what I see on my screen, the Artistic Director of Theatre Lab, Youth, India. Kirtana Kumar is an Indian actor, director, dramaturg, and filmmaker with 35 years stage experience. With her company, Little Jasmine Theatre Project, she has developed 15 works of contemporary Indian theatre. She developed and organized 2 national symposia on dramaturgy, Jagriti Theatre and Theatre Pedagogy for Children, Rangashankara, respectively. In June 2020, she organized a national symposium called Because the World is You on theatre pedagogies for children in the time of Zoom. In March 2021, she was invited to be artist in residency by the, if I'm pronouncing it right, Kulturreferat der Landesh Potshat Munchen. I'm not sure if my pronunciation is right, but that's how it is. During this period, she curated Global Karnataka, a festival of theatre from Karnataka for teen theatre, and co-hosted a series of conversations on post-pandemic ideas for theatre and the arts at Meta Theatre. Her latest work, developed at Villa Waldeberta, is a digital archive of communiques between 2 women called Nagamma's Letters. She is a trustee of Women's Artists Group and runs Infinite Souls Farm and Artist Retreat. She currently serves as chairperson of the Board of Trustees at Vistar Institute of Development, an organization that works on issues on peace and social justice among marginalized groups, including urban and rural Dalit youth. Warm welcome to you, Kirtana ma'am. Looking forward to your conversation here. The third panelist, and we'll be welcoming her, is Adjjima. Adjjima na Patalung. Am I pronouncing it right? Shall I go ahead? Yeah. From Bangkok International Children's Theatre Festival, Thailand. She's a theatre director, curator, and producer, formerly based in London, UK. She now invests her time back in home in Bangkok, Thailand. She wishes to utilize her intercultural and multidisciplinary experience to generate, together with her peers, more love for theatre and more awareness among the Thai public sectors about the all-round benefits of the art form for people of all ages. Adjjima is currently a member of Asia TYA Network and of the curating team of STEP International Dance Festival, Sweden, for 2020 and 2022 editions. Now I'd be introducing the co-curator of Dramebaazi International Arts Festival for the Young, Shaili, Sathyu ma'am, and the moderator for today's webinar, Ramanjit Kaur. So I start with Shaili ma'am, and then we'll go with Ramanjit ma'am. Shaili Sathyu is the artistic director of Gilo Repertory Theatre, an organization that specializes in theatre for young audiences. She has written and directed over 10 plays, including Kyun Kyun Ladki, Mr. Gigi Boy and the Birds, She He She, Gulabo or Parizad, and Chidiya Ur, among others. Since 2003, she has conducted creative drama and theatre workshops for children and teachers across India. Under her leadership, Gilo Repertory Theatre has produced more than 20 plays, staged over 500 shows, and reached over 110,000 children in India. Shaili is a recipient of the Ustad Bismillah Khan Yuva Puraskar from the Sangeet Natak Academy. She has served as the honorary secretary of Asitej India chapter, the International Association of Theatre for Children and Young People, for 2 years. Welcome, Shaili ma'am. And now we have Ramanjit ma'am. who's going to be the moderator and who is the co-curator of Dramebaazi 2021. Ramanjit Kaur is an award-winning theatre and film actor and director. She is the founder-director of the Creative Arts and the National Vice President of Arts Leadership Council, Women's Indian Chamber of Commerce and Industry, WICI. Trained under Guru Padma Shri Neelam Mansingh Chaudhary and in the UK, France and Italy, she has performed at festivals in India and worldwide. In 2002, she founded the Creative Arts, the prestigious Theatre Training Institute, and in 2011, she created the All-Women Theatre Group. She was awarded the Gold Medal in Masters in Music, Instrumental, and won national and international awards like Sangeet Natak Academy's Ustad Bismillah Khan Yuva Puraskar Award, Sanskriti Award, Uttam Kumar Award, and Ladli National Award for Gender Sensitization, the French Embassy Scholarship, and the Charles Wallace Award. She acted in Deepa Mehta's Anatomy of Violence, Heaven on Earth and Fire, Samir Mehanovish, Mouth of Hell, and Shalini Raghavaiya's Watch the Stars for Me Tonight. She directed the poetry film Silence, which won the Berlin Flash Film Festival Awards, among others. So we welcome from TCA all the panelists. Enjoy the evening. We are waiting to hear you all. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful conversation ahead.
Thank you so much, Abanti. That was a generous introduction. And I would like to ask you, are we ready with the video or shall we start a conversation?
Yes, we are ready with the video.
Okay, it's just 30 seconds of launching or maybe pre-launching Dramebaazi. That's how I need to put it because launch is on 23rd. Go ahead, Abanti. We don't have the sound, Abanti. Could you play it again, please? We'll have to stop share and reshare. Thank you. Thank you, Abanti. All right, so here we go. And I don't know where Shaili is. Shaili, are you there? Because I want to start my conversation with you. And there's a reason for that. Not because you're my co-curator, but also that you are someone who's creating theater with the youngest of audiences. That's why I want to start my conversation with you, because our webinar is about embracing arts in childhood. I personally feel, and I keep reiterating that what happens to a human being when they come to this world? They are born with a raw material that is unique to them, but all over the world, even though some education systems have evolved and they become very innovative and creative, but all over the world, we still have a system where we say that this is how things are done. And this is what we have learned as a generation before you. And we give it to you in this manner. And this is how you need to learn. And this is how you need to express. But I personally feel that that's not how it should be. I think the beginning should be a human being being born with this unique raw material, and our endeavor should be is to explore that raw material and to discover that what is this raw material that this human being is born with, what have they come here with, what is this unique quality that the nature has endowed on this person. But how do we do that? Are there tools and ways and means through which we can do that? I think arts and all various art forms can play a very important role in discovering and exploring, and first of all helping that very little person also reach within themselves to understand themselves and bring out those qualities, and then slowly bringing them out, chiseling them, polishing them. Then whether it's maths, science, arts, engineering, doctorate, whatever you look at, can be looked into deeply once we have addressed what this human being is all about. That's what I feel. Sometimes it sounds very, dreamy or esoteric, but I don't feel so. I have my faith in this little philosophy that I've created in my head. And because I see all of you, when you work, or so many other people who work with children, what comes out from those children? That's where we feel the real human being. That's where we feel the real person coming out. So what happens over there? What are these tools or means that we use? So my first question to you, Shaili, is that when you started working with the young audiences, first, if you could share what is the age group that you work with? What were your initial experiences? And what do you think? We are straight away heading towards a question where what do you think are the changes that you have felt, or what does art do to them?
Thanks, Ramanjit. I don't think I'll go too much into the work that I've done. It's more what I have learned through the process. And I strongly believe that as adults, as people who are making decisions for children, especially when they're really young, and when I say really young is as young as 1 or 2 year olds, because I also produce work for the early years. I think these lenses which we have been conditioned to look at everything to do with children, upbringing, education, childhood, child development, all these, various things that we talk about. And the lens of, there's a certain hierarchy in the whole, what is childhood and what is education and the systems. I think we have to, they're not even lenses. I feel they're like cobwebs, we just have to remove all of that and not look at it in terms of arts versus the pure sciences or arts versus some other, part of theoretical or academic learning. I think especially for children from the time they're born till maybe 10, 12 years old as well, I think it's more about providing, looking at the arts as, an artistic language. We keep talking about emotional intelligence and, all of those things these days. But I think the arts themselves are a language. And if there is enough exposure given, if there is enough opportunity for engaging with the art forms, I'm not talking about formal training. It's not about teaching children how to, play an instrument. Of course, that is also part of arts appreciation and skill building. But I don't look at it only in that sense as a training space, but more of looking at the arts as providing a certain grammar, a certain language with which you make sense of the world around you, which includes the people, your emotions, the things around you, the spaces, your experiences, making sense of it, putting it into this language which can be visual, it can be oral, it can be, emotional. It doesn't have to be a written text all the time, or only one way of looking at expression or grammar. And I think it's just about giving that exposure and children absorbing, because children are amazing at absorbing. I think it's we adults who get shortchanged by the time we are, I think, 15 or 20. And I think instead of teaching children what to do, it's more about children with their parents, their educators, everybody is older than them. It's about sharing those experiences with these children. I feel the importance of the shared experience of a shared arts experience or a shared arts engagement for a child with a parent has huge value, because what adults, when today somebody who's 25, 30, 35, who has a small child, their experience as a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old is very removed from what they're trying to create for their child. And I think it becomes too theoretical. It becomes just, words. This is what we're trying to do. But when they experience the arts with their children, I think they discover themselves as well, and not just, self-discovery for the children. So I think for me, what I've learned most is, how do we as adults, we don't have to be parents of the children we work with, but how do we share these experiences as a community? The community could be a family, it could be a larger community, it could be, a city level community, it could be anything. I mean, the scale keeps changing, but the sense of community, I think, is extremely important, rather than this whole idea of the arts being, in isolation and everybody's consuming at this very individual personal level. For me, the community aspect is very important.
Right. Thank you for that. And with that, I move to, in fact, Adjjima from Thailand, who is actually working with the community and is trying to create spaces for community arts to happen, or arts engagement to happen within the community. Adjjima, what do you feel? What has your experience been in terms of taking art to the community, or the spaces that you have tried to create, a library here or other engagements elsewhere?
So, hi, I'm Adjjima. I am the director of Big Fest, the Bangkok International Children's Theatre Festival, and I take care of the programming and also producing of the festival, which is running every 2 years. So exactly what we're trying to do in Thailand, in Bangkok, to start off with, is to create a community of art appreciators. Because in Thailand at the moment, the arts, especially the contemporary arts and theatre, if we put it even more focus for the arts for young audiences, for young people, are quite under-promoted and underrepresented. And by creating a festival, it's almost like creating a framework to which we can kind of like, to how we can actually promote our work or this work to the wider public. So, so in this case, apart from actually creating exposure to the Bangkok audience, to the already existing TYA work in Thailand, but also we also inviting them to be exposed to work from other cultures as well. So in this case, with the work of high level or high quality, we hope that we can also bring in audiences with interest, with more interest in the theatre for young audiences. And our first year, we realized that in Thailand, there's a need for parents for such kind of events, because there's not enough. In Bangkok, we in the center of Bangkok, we only have one cultural building, which is the Bangkok Art and Culture Center, and surrounding it is all shopping malls. So in fact, parents are actually looking for a place, alternative spaces for such kind of endeavors for their children. And with this, we also want to enlarge or increase the number of artists with the interest for TYA work as well. So with the work that we do, we allow for exchange of skills and practice with artists who has been developing work elsewhere. So with this, it's a sort of nature to which we're working towards the building up the community of theatre appreciators, and with the hope that what we are doing will kind of actually create a ripples that kind of like sending back message to our government to notice or to be aware that this part of, if we can say, this part of creative learning for children can actually also then be beneficial, and perhaps it could also be included back into the national curriculum. So our work is in a way it takes time to process, and also we kind of still trying to kind of like, you know, expand our networks to outside of Bangkok, because we realize that our work is only limited to not only Bangkok audiences, but also to at the moment to middle class audiences and parents who are having kids in homeschools, and also you know, parents who actually be aware of the benefit of arts for their children. Because in Thailand, our situation is we are still living in a society where the division within the social society is still very in a pyramid shape. So it means that we have audiences who are from like a lower income sectors, who are still perhaps not having time and to be able to take care of their children in such a way that they can be concerned about, you know, this side of creative learning for their children. So we're trying to kind of like expanding our work in a way slowly to engage with community and local NGOs in Bangkok and also outside of Bangkok, to be able to collaborate with them so that we are able to make sure that our work can actually expand a little bit or reach out further. So so this is a sort of community building that we are trying to do through the festival. Yeah.
Thank you, Adjjima. With that, I come to Kirtana, connecting your conversation to Kirtana's work. And that is, Adjjima has talked about paucity of spaces, you know, that they are having in Bangkok itself, in Thailand. I think that is a question that all of us face all over. That is one. And there's another question that all of us could address, and that concerns me a lot. When she says that having this pyramid of society where the lower portion or even the middle portion of the society, they cannot be concerned about creative pursuits. And that's where my deepest concern lies, that why does it have to be a special effort for creative pursuits? It should be so deeply embedded in our education system, in our teaching systems, in our creative learning systems, that there should be no need to have this as a separate space. It should be a part and parcel of our life. Coming to you, Kirtana, you have created Infinite Soul, which is like a dream for any artist. I know there's a lot of hard work that goes on. Your team just went away after the pandemic, and you have been milking the cows and doing all the farming. So salute to you, because I don't know what I would do if I had to do this. But I guess we all rise to the occasion, and that's what you've done. Also, you've been engaging with parents. Parents was another issue that Adjjima brought in, and that also concerns us. So creating this space for children, also looking at what has been the engagement of the parents or the involvement of the parents of the children that you are working with. If you could share some experiences of yours about these points.
Sure, thank you, Raman. And it was very interesting listening to both Adjjima as well as Shaili. There were so many points of resonance. I have to say that my life, my practice, and what I do with children has undergone a really big shift after the onset of the pandemic. And I find that everything I thought about previously is undergoing a sea change. So there is actually within your question was so many different, it was quite dense. So I'm going to try and address a few of them. For one thing, this idea of space. See, what I've discovered during the lockdowns was that my students who are between the ages of, say, roughly teenage, let's say roughly teenage students, have been within the digital space for much longer than me. They've been working within the digital space for almost maybe perhaps the last 10 years, and they're very quick-witted with the digital space. And I found this, I found actually the digital space open up very more possibilities for reach and for kind of negotiating new work and really for offering the children much more agency. For example, now the play that they're bringing to Dramebaazi is a play that's entirely created by themselves, because I can barely wrap my head around the methods that they use within the digital space. So I'm just actually helping them to frame it, but even the framing is being done by them. So this idea of space in India, we're also very much, Adjjima, you have to know that it's very much pyramid in India, and society has been so stratified. But there's something else that always stays in my mind, and this is something that Shaili shared with me at the start of the lockdown, which is the idea of art being restricted to these different silos. Now, this is something that I absolutely I reject, and like you, Ramanjit, I feel that it has to be embedded in all our actions, in our values, in our choices, and all of it. And in fact, it probably is. Because the way somebody goes out and does their rangoli or kolam in the morning, the way somebody weaves flowers and puts it in their hair, the way somebody ties their sari, all this is performative. None of it is divorced from art. All of it is very performative. It's just that we within capitalist frameworks have completely separated art from the child, and then we think we have to bring it to the child. So this is the sort of systems that I really reject, and I'm really looking for new ways of engagement. And the other thing for me, I find that why do I work with children? It's really in order for me to play. I find that if I work with children, it allows me a space in which I can play, and the actor in me remains alive and vital and invigorated. So, I mean, I hope I'm making sense to you, to all of you. But really, this is the stuff
Absolutely.
that I've been thinking about ever since the pandemic, like what is this whole idea of bringing art to students, this is all fine, but if we're still doing it within a capitalist framework, then we actually don't move away from the science, technology, engineering, math model. All we're saying is we're empowering you to deal with that a little better. And if you do some theater, then you'll become a better competitor, a better producer, all these different things. Now, these are the ideas that I'm really kind of moving away from in my own practice. I'm not judging it in anyone else's practice, but in my practice, I'm really trying to move away from that. And I've had in terms of space, the one thing that I can offer my children is that I can offer them an embodied space. So we do camps where children come to the farm. But the way I'm doing theater now is completely different, because I tell them, look, if you're shoveling the shit, that is theater. If you're planting a seed, that is theater. If you learn how to bake a cake, that is theater. If you know where your milk comes from, and if you can join the dots between nature and yourself and your community, that is theater. So if you think that theater is about producing a play or learning lines or putting on makeup, we're moving away from that. because the pandemic, if it's not done anything else, it's taught us that we are creating these messes. So we have to be empowered to move away from it. So that's what I can offer you as a reply, Raman.
Right, right. No, that's quite interesting that if we move away from the theater of life, then we are not doing theater or involving in arts at all.
Yeah.
Coming to Paula with that, Paula, my question to you, along with the work, reflecting on your work with the young people, what I want to ask you is, what are the challenges that you face while working with the youth that you've been working with? Is it the regularity? Is it the involvement? Is it about the issues that they are concerned about? So what would be, or is it, has it got to do with parents, or has it got to do with communication? What are the challenges that you face when you're working with the young people? Because you're working with, I think, teenagers and above, am I right?
Yeah, most of our work with young people would really be involving the kind of teenagers, so it'd be aiming from about 13 years up. A lot of the I suppose the more intense work and the work that has kind of long-term benefits primarily would be within the youth sector, so it would be at a community level. And a lot of the stuff would be, it's the same as we find when we're working with adults. It's about the sophistication of the gatekeepers. So if we can connect with people that are working within the community that are interested in allowing us to work with the young people, then that's massive. One of the difficulties we have working within the formal education system, as we all know, is that education is still so much controlled by church and state. And so the issues that we are interested in addressing, the kind of key social issues that young people are interested in exploring, whether it is about substance abuse, whether it's about violence within relationships, whether it is about the breakdown of the family unit, whether it is about coming to terms with the legacy of the conflict in a country like Ireland. A lot of those issues, the schools are terrified of us going in to discuss with the young people, because what they have difficulty with is that our teachers are going, how do we deal with the fallout of that? So even though that we are talking about that this is about short, medium and long-term engagement, and we will ensure that we don't re-traumatize, and we will ensure that the toolkits and the mechanisms and the after experience education for our teachers will be there. The schools are still very, very reluctant. Now, I also understand that, because obviously financially and economically the pressure on schools at the minute is huge. And also then with that, what's happened is it's the arts that suffer, because the arts, as we all have been saying, is still perceived to be an add-on rather than it being embedded within the education system to facilitate empowering young people to find their voices, to have a sense of play, to be active citizens, to be asking the difficult questions, and to be pointing the finger at adults to go, what have you done with our society? I mean, particularly during the pandemic, the blame that was placed on young people, and yet we're not allowing them to find their voice and be expressive and I suppose take the lead the way that we have seen it happen within the kind of movement within recycling and the green economy. Their voices within that has been such an inspiration to us all. Now, that aside, one of the other challenges within the community sector, more within the youth sector, now we would do long-term projects, say, that would last over a 6 to 8 month period. That would be very intense. That would be it. The pressure we have is that a lot of the funders require an outcome, so they require a product, and that they don't place the same importance on the process, and that often we have to dictate what the product or the process will be in order to get the investment to do the project. So allowing for flexibility and being able to have those conversations with funders and our communities to say, we don't know what that product's going to be. What we would like to explore is this. Can you trust us to work with the young people to actually see what they want to talk about? And it changes so quickly within young people's minds. And I think that is absolutely key. And one of the arguments that we have started to use is that if you look at the conversation that is having with startup business, or is having within kind of industrial change on a global level, employers now are constantly saying that employees coming into the sector that have a knowledge or have a foundation within the arts make better employers, or employees, because they can problem solve, because they can play as part of a team, because they have an appreciation of their unique contribution. So one of the things that we have started looking at is how do we, from a societal perspective, make the arguments long-term about engagement with the arts at a very, very young age. But also within our society, I mean, just from my perspective as a child, I was involved in the arts because my parents believed it was how I would meet those from the other community. And they felt that that was invaluable. When I first started working with the circus, way back in 1985, the conflict was still in its height. It was the only occasion where those children that were on the margins, that the society had given up on because they weren't academic achievers, that were the ones that were going to end up within our prison system, that we discovered that when we were bringing circus into care homes, into divided communities, into the coalface of working class communities on opposite sides of peace walls, oddly, playing with juggling or playing with unicycling or playing with stilt walking was the thing that started those initial conversations, because the young people then had their voice and they felt they were being listened to. And exactly what you were saying, Kirtana, about this idea of being allowed to play. You know, that you're saying that play is legitimate. It is all right to laugh. And it's interesting, one of the questions in the chat about why do we find we keep having to make this argument over and over again, is because when you look at our education system and when you look at the way that funding works, it still is about quantifying. It is about numbers. And so often we evaluate the arts from a qualitative perspective. It is about emotion. It is about being able to subjectively talk about the change we can see in a young person. And that it's how we can make those arguments within the language that our societal capitalist structures currently use. And I think we're getting better at that. I mean, we have a very sophisticated framework for our art for younger audiences and engagement programs in the north of Ireland, and it's because of the conflict. We're a very small society, but because it was the tool that was recognised by those that were trying to bring about peace. They went, we realised that what you're doing with the arts, we're not able to do within the education system, and we're not able to do from a government level. It came from grassroots up, this absolute embracement of the arts. We have an annual children's festival that runs for 3-4 weeks every single year. We have a theatre company called Cahoots NI that produces large-scale spectacle for young audiences that involves magic, that involves the element of surprise, that works online and works live, that tours internationally. We have a youth project that runs weekly workshops for 4-year-olds to 12-year-olds that come from working class communities in Republican heartlands called Brassneck Youth, that is hugely successful. And it has found ways of articulating impact. We have another organisation called Bruiser Theatre Company that produces syllabus texts to go into schools that are not staged the way that they would have been in the past. It's small cast, no set, all about play, all about bringing words to life, bringing history to life, bringing the text that they're studying to life. But yeah, that's kind of the stuff that I do. Like, I think what's interesting is when you involve adults in the projects, it's interesting. We created a project called, and this was a 1.5-year project, where the young people we were working with all along the border area from different communities, we gave them all dictaphones and they had to interview their parents and grandparents about the border life, about transgressing the border. Out of that, then we commissioned a playwright who created a play. We workshopped it with the young people. The young people then performed it, and we performed it in different communities. But the sense of empowerment within those young people and the sense of a group dynamic that never would have been possible before came out of that project. But also all the older people in that community had better respect for the young people. And that was key as well. And I think those collaborative projects, I'm a huge fan of them. And thank you for inviting me to this, by the way.
Right. Thanks, Paula. Thank you for being here. Well, with that, I come to Shaili again, because it's kind of leading that way. Shaili, what are your challenges when you work? Because you have bought this bus and you do these bus tours where you take the place to the schools. So it's not inviting the audience to a space, but you going within the community, that is within the community of education, where the children are, and addressing them or taking arts to them. But what are the challenges that you face when you're working with a very rigid and conservative education system that we have, and also a system that kind of says that each one of us have to be absolutely similar to the other? If you're good in maths, I have to be good in maths. If it's science, or if you're good in dance, I have to be good in dance. So, but where there's barely any space for uniqueness, someone who just dreams, who knows what he's dreaming and what he's going to come up with, where is that space of dreaming? Where is that space of nothingness? And what Paula said gets connected later on to quantification. Why the funders are looking at it? Because since our childhood, we are quantifying everything, the toppers, the first, the second, the marks, the grades. What is the use? Why that competition among human beings? Is it really required? We are supposed to give them something, some education, learn it, leave it, whatever you want to do, but there has to be a different system of addressing a human being the moment they are born. So what is it that you face in terms of challenges, and what are your thoughts about it?
So one of the biggest challenges over the years has been connecting with educators and decision makers.
And I'm just saying that there are questions running, and also Lee Thompson, one of our delightful puppeteers who's running his show the second time at Dramebaazi, and we're going to play his video at the end of the webinar also. He's created a special advert. He is also asking a similar question. So that's why I interrupted. But do you think schools or education systems neglect the arts? If so, why do you think they do that?
I don't know if neglect is the right word, but they just don't include it. I mean, in the majority. But in relation to the work that I have been doing of doing traveling theater and going to rural and semi-urban areas, I think it has been a huge, a huge learning experience for us, because we've been very mindful of this whole thing of urban artists going to a rural space or a semi-urban space, and, the hierarchies, which even if you don't want them, they're there. So we've been very careful, tried to be, that it shouldn't be like, we're coming from the city and we'll tell you what art is and we'll tell you what theater is. And, it's like going into somebody's home and telling them how to live their life. So I think it's about, as artists, as an arts community, engaging with children, acknowledging them as individuals, as citizens, and not as little beings who are still not fully formed. I think there's that whole aspect of respect, which a child audience can be given in the way you engage with them. Even if there is a formal show that is happening for them, or if you're just playing with them before the sort of formal performance. So for me, it has been more of this, creating this space. Some of us spoke about physical spaces for children to engage with the arts. I think the bigger problem is creating mental space, creating the mental space to accept that children need exposure to the arts as a space where they can relieve themselves of certain emotions, they can engage with others, they can laugh wholeheartedly. When children are watching a performance, they don't care how loudly they laugh, but adults do. And sometimes it happens, children don't laugh in a comic humorous piece. And then you ask them, they're like, no, we didn't get permission to laugh from our teachers. So we're at that kind of control situation where you're conditioned and controlled with your responses as well. So I think that making really small cracks in that whole structure is what is important. None of us can on our own really change everything, but I think we can change the way we engage with children, the way we give them respect in the art space, because it's a physical and mental space that we create, whether it's in their school or in their city or in their neighborhood. And I think showing alternatives of the child-adult relationship, or the teenager-adult relationship, to break those hierarchies as well. There are different ways of speaking with children, of listening to them, which I feel has happened in some of the work that I've done, and a lot of work by other people, including Kirtana, who's here. And I think that is important, changing this, our image of what is a child, what is childhood, what is the adult young person, relationship at a larger society level. I know these are all like, I'm talking in the air, but I feel children totally understand this. They totally understand that they are in an oppressive environment. So when they see a ray of light, or when they see an opening, you can see it in their eyes. You can see that they're like, they just got that fresh air and they breathe. And I think the adults who don't give that, it's our conditioning, this is how it has been, this is how it should be. And connecting with something that Paula said, the arts, and also what Kirtana said, for us, the arts is a journey. It's not about going from point A to point B. It's just starting at point A, and then, when you reach somewhere, you may call it point B if you want. But the education systems and the capitalist systems are very rigid in terms of they want to direct you from where you start and where you reach and how you reach there, So it's almost like, an assembly line in that sense. And here we are talking about let children have agency, let them have the decision-making power, use the language of the arts to explore their life, to reject things, to have informed choices. And that openness is scary for most adults. Most adults are actually scared of young people, and that's why we make these restrictions. And we word it in a way where it doesn't sound like a restriction, but that this is how it's supposed to be. We label it as tradition, we label it as way of life, identity, and nationalistic whatever identities. We want to give all these labels, but ultimately it is oppression of some sort. And I think if we can just be there as artists and within the system, knowingly, consciously being part of the system and continuously making cracks in those walls and then rebuilding them and again making those cracks. I think it's just a continuum, So I don't know if I'm making sense, but I just feel that all of these things, there's a lot of oppression, and it's about opening spaces for children and giving them that platform to question. And it will end up also in them rejecting us as well. And we should be ready for that, So yeah, that's what I would say.
True, very true. We have a question from Anjum Katyal, Director of Writing Department at the Academy and Director of quite a few literary festivals. At least a couple of them I know. Anjum's question is directed to Adjjima. Adjjima, Thailand is rich in aesthetic traditions, and we see this in the artistic presentation of the simplest things and the wonderful crafts. Is this something that is woven into cultural life or value systems from childhood? In Manipur, for example, the practice of dance and martial arts starts from childhood. Is there something similar in Thailand? And I would say that not only in Manipur, but Kerala, we have Kalari Payattu, or so many art forms, even in Bengal for that matter, most of the children are taught dance and music. And theater a lot of times in Bengal, but not in a systemized manner where there's a lot of thought that has gone into it. But I'm talking in terms of theater. Of course, music and dance do end up having classical training systems, and that's what is used in India. But is there a culture in Thailand that children start imbibing, or they are being trained in some creative pursuits or art forms right from the childhood?
Yes, I would say yes. It's a very, very similar situation, and I think, well, children will get to learn kind of like some it's more like an introduction to the Thai traditional culture, which is like more engraved in the formal educational system. But with this, it's kind of limited to a certain age. So we stop like by the age of like 12, and it depending on how kids will kind of like continue their interest in the traditional forms. Although the folk culture and the local culture are more flourish, and it's kind of more because it's the way it's passed on within the community itself. So I think Thailand and India has kind of quite similar parallel approaches, but I would say like in the formal educational system, the traditional culture has been perceived more as the national identity. And for that, I find it kind of also quite limiting to the way children can actually relate to this Thai culture. And also in Thailand, it doesn't get invested further to kind of like creating more relationship and understanding of the traditional art forms. So in a way, it's almost like to introduce it like it's as a national pride, and without kind of cultivating the love for the art form itself. So there's sort of gap. I don't know about in India, but in Thailand, I found that in terms of the traditional, like more classical Thai art form is then kind of stay where it is and not being kind of like expanded further. Yeah, so it's kind of like this big division between the tradition and the contemporary. Yeah, in Thailand.
I can see that Kirtana has raised her hand. Kirtana, could you increase the light around you, because you've suddenly gone all into darkness?
Give me a second. Give me a second.
Yeah, sure. All right. In the meantime, I could address this to Paula. Paula, what are the creative tools that you have used? I mean, you did share one where you brought the recordings together, and it was almost like taking, was it verbatim theater, or was it something that, okay, the playwright worked on it. So what are the other creative tools, maybe Kirtana, what she wanted to say, and then you could address this, Paula, that what are the creative tools that you have used? And this is a question for everyone, or, steps that you have taken to address the problems that youngsters face. Kirtana, over to you.
Yes,
about
actually,
whatever you wanted to share. Yeah.
I'm dying to say two things, one in response to Paula and Shaili, and one in response to Adjjima. I so agree with Adjjima, because I think that in India, this museumization of traditional forms has also been extremely short-sighted, and is not introspective. For example, the caste, the class, and the gender issues that come with traditional forms is never looked at, because there's so much nationalistic zeal to present this wonderful tradition. So I think that theater as a form, it's different. See, theater is completely, I feel theater is a radical form, Theater is a form that is brave and that has to challenge and go forward and examine. So if we just keep imposing form without questioning form, to me, it's useless. And at this particular point in time, I feel very strongly that, what Paula was saying about the difficult issues. If theater is not going forward with these, I feel it particularly because I also know some of my students are here today, and I know that we've suffered a lot. There's been a lot of depression. There've been a lot of really challenges of violence, challenges of suicide, lots of challenges that teenagers have had to face in the last 1.5 years. Now, this is not the stuff that schools are touching in any sort of in any strong kind of fashion. So if we are not doing it, we who work with young people, if we don't have our ears to the ground and are not listening to what they are dying to talk about, gender and sexuality, for example, in India is a huge thing for teenagers, and they have absolutely no platforms. So if we within this beautiful field of theater, if we are not willing to go there, I think we'd be missing the woods for the trees. So therefore I'm not into this whole thing of like form. Kalri Paitu is fine for exercise. I'll do it for exercise and if it builds my body, but I will jolly well unpack what it comes with. The same with anything else, any other dance or any other puppetry, anything. I will use it. If it's useful to me, I'm going to use it. But I think we have to start unpacking it, because this blind dependence on the beauty or the aesthetic has, in fact, it's been really detrimental to our young people. The reason why participation, even today in India, why do people disregard children's participation in life? Basically, we treat them like idiots till they're 18. Then we think, you can vote, you can get married, you can have sex, in an arranged marriage setup, but you give them absolutely no participation, absolutely no agency. Then suddenly they're adults. So
yeah,
I think that theater has to behave differently. Theater has to be a whole other ballgame.
Yes. So you've just nailed it, exactly what Shaili and I were discussing in another session yesterday. That the space of introspection, when I say that, when a person is born and is young, or, how do we tap that raw material? How do we say, knock, knock, who are you? What is there inside you? Have we given them that space? We are so ready with what we have experienced to give it to them in a platter, and we say, lap it up, don't question what we have experienced or where it came from, but this is how it is, this is what it is, this is what the world is. So where is that space of introspection? Where is that question where we say, what do you think this is? Who do you think you are? Or what do you think this whole world is? Or how do you think this should be addressed? If you ask the question to little children about biggest of life's questions, sometimes they have the most brilliant answers, because they are absolutely not carrying any baggage. It's pure. It's coming from a very, very open-minded space that they will bring it onto you. And somewhere the answers to the biggest questions of life lies in the simplest of things. So I completely agree with you, Kirtana, that base of introspection, and I think that makes it into a chain, because we are introspecting, we are giving everyone a space to introspect, to question, to answer or address what is there inside them, tap what is there inside them, and to say that each thought matters. No thought is lesser than the other. No idea is lesser than the other, and it must be addressed. Once we start doing that, I think the matter of quantification, linking it back to what Paula was saying, quantification will also reduce. Even this whole training of art forms where you talked about beauty is because we say, oh, she dances so beautifully, or he has got so much grace, or we have become strong because we've got martial arts or sports or yoga or whatever. But where is the thinking of the mind? So coming to Shaili with this. Shaili, what are the creative tools, or I think I asked Paula before that Paula, what are the other creative tools that you, you know, kind of looked at or brought in to address the issues that adolescents face? Because Kirtana just talked about increase in suicide and depression. When we deal with youngsters, there are so many of them who are under therapy. It wasn't the case earlier. What has happened? Is it influx of too much education? Is it too much expectation of the older generation from the younger generation? Or is it their expectation from themselves because they are out there in the media and they see their peers doing things and wondering whether I can do this or not? What is it? And if they're what is it that causes so much trauma within them? And what are the creative tools that we have been using to address these issues?
Oh, how long have you got?
I know the session was only 1 hour, but we started talking around after 10-12 minutes, so we can take some time.
Yeah.
Okay.
I agree with all of the things that you said there. I think actually one of the massive pressures on young people is the rigidity with which we measure success. So how we value their contribution as individuals to our society, to their home life. And that then rolls out into how they communicate with their peers. And so often, as you rightly say, it is about giving them space to say, your voice matters. I am interested in what is your biggest concerns. And I am going to sit and listen to you. And I am prepared for you to tell me anything. In that, you know, like whenever you, what I'm really interested in is this idea that it is not about putting blame on the education system. It is not about putting blame on society. Like there are so many different things going on in the world at the minute. But I think as artists, it's about us saying there are huge social issues, particularly within our young people, as regards all the things we've mentioned: suicide, body image, gender violence, sexuality, how they deal with living in this world, which we're all finding difficult at the moment. And we know the schools can't deal with it. We know why do we expect somebody, because they become a parent, all of a sudden know how to answer all these questions and deal with these issues, as well as trying to live in 2021? So as artists, being able to say, we can deal with this. Let us step into those gaps and let us facilitate informed conversations that create a better society long term. Because no matter what you tell us as a young person, it's not going to shock us. We're going to listen, and collectively we're going to find a way to create something that reminds us to laugh, reminds us to play, reminds us that every individual contribution is important. Now, the various tools that we have used over the years, that one I talked about recorders and like going and recording adults, and it didn't matter whether they were doing a 10-minute interview. It was the fact that they actually were going to ask their grandfather what it was like when he was a child. Now, just simply asking somebody to do that, they look at their grandfather differently. They look at where they sit within society, why they possibly have the personality that they have. So it's reminding them that they exist by simply giving them a task-based thing that means their response to it is important. We've done similar projects where, like for example, in some of the kind of marginalized working class communities, what we have done is we have got young people to, like we've gone into communities and we've said, if somebody landed here from Mars, where within your playground or your street or your school is the wee hidden place that you think only you know about? If you had to let this person from Mars hear a piece of music in that hidden place at the back of the bike shed, what would that piece of music be? And all of a sudden they are curating their vision and their version of their own environment. And then we created it was a project we did with a local school, where basically all the students that were in transition, that are between the ages of, that means that they're moving into their final exam period, so they're between the ages of 15 and 16. We created an audio tour curated by each of these young people, and you put on a headset and you listen to their chosen music whilst they wrote bits of poetry, whilst they shared their favorite extract out of a book, while they shared something out of their diary, and it was all recorded. And you went on a walking tour, you walked in their shoes. And so adults then are listening to young people and going, yes, now I see the world the way you see it. And then out of that, then we've done a lot of issue-based work with them. But it's about that idea of encouraging communication, because if we provide young people, and similarly adults, with new language for communication, conversations will happen. Ripple effects do take place, you know. And we've also done projects looking at eating disorders, looking at, and also looking at substance abuse, that was about trying to identify why it happens, as opposed to apportioning blame. And I think as artists, that's also what we can do. It is about that idea of humanizing something that we cannot get our heads around. And it's bringing it back to the personal. It's how you put the micro in the macro. It's how you put the personal in the public. It's the same conversations we do when we create theatre for adults.
Absolutely. Coming to you, Adjjima, you have made interventions in the community space. Would you like to share a couple of examples of how you used creativity to, bring arts to the community?
Well,
apart from the festival which you shared earlier, but I also know that there's a library that you created. So
no, we haven't really created a library.
Tell me, what was the project that you were talking about?
No, working with the collaborating with learning centers and just making more spaces across the city engage with each other.
That's what
yeah. Well, we just started in 2016, and most of the festival are based in Bangkok. Just before the COVID came, we started to connect with networks outside of Bangkok. Actually, sort of like taking up the idea of mobile, we're trying to create a mobile festival, so bring our work elsewhere in Thailand. So in this way, we hope that we can actually reach out to more children and also engage with the community who's already working in theatre for education. So with this way, it's almost our pilot program to actually develop our work further afield. And so like this, the plan was to actually bring the festival to a few minor cities in the north, the south, and the east of Thailand. But then since the COVID came, we have to kind of like put a hold on that idea. But instead, we are still kind of like connecting and still working, collaborating with a few other networks in the north and in the south, creating together an online festival. Within this festival, we have a participatory program led by a Swiss company that will kind of like engage communities of children in schools in Bangkok, in Uttaradit in the north, and Phetchaburi in the south. 1 month of dance choreography learning. So within this month, we'll be kind of also working with facilitators from these cities and connecting them with the international artists and exchange through the choreography, and then realize in short video programs that will kind of like bring back to the festival. So this kind of like models has been developed already in 2018 when we ran one festival. So we kind of like inviting participants from the general public, like families with children, to kind of like together build a performance with the artist. that we then end up programming in our festival. So this is a sort of like area of work that we are doing now. And if we can actually in the future run a library, a mobile library, we would do also.
Right. I wish you all the best for that.
Yeah, it's kind of like a
Kirtana,
small steps for our work at the moment. Yeah.
right. That would be lovely. So coming to the last round of question for all of you, Kirtana, also I want you to include if you want to share any creative tools or processes that you started within the last couple of years or anything that you want to share would be crucial. And also if all of us could quickly answer that, you know, what can be or what changes. We've all said that this is how education is functioning and the space is not there, or even the corporates, the funders look at quantification. But what are the changes that we can look at within the education system so that we actually embrace arts as from childhood and they become our lifestyle? You know, they become a part of our life. They are embedded within our lives. So that is something that Kirtana started addressing. And if all of us could also address as the last question, but Kirtana, if you could also share some of the lovely projects that you came up with in the last couple of years. Yeah.
Okay. So well, let me tell you what's upcoming rather than me talking about past work. So
Sure.
I've actually got 20 drama students coming to live, coming to a COVID bubble on the farm for 3 months. Now, this is a really long period of time, but the whole idea is that they come here and they do embodied work. And I'm just going to share some very quickly 3 slides that I shared with them yesterday.
Excellent.
Just to give you a sense of the pedagogy and like what we're thinking of. So these are the parameters really to look at the actor. Well, maybe I should show you this slide first. So if you could look at, yeah, if you could look at this, and I don't know if you can read the
yes,
quote
it's
at
lovely.
the bottom, but that's a quote. The quote there is from Fukuoka, who of course you know is One Straw Revolution, but I've changed farming to theater and crops to products, and that's kind of providing as a frame. And I don't want to take you through the whole thing, but I'll just hang on. I'll just show you this. So this is a parameter, and this is the pedagogy that we're using with everybody. So whether they're young children, whether they're teenagers or young adults, this is the sort of work that we're doing. And we've made sustainability, because for me, sustainability in theater is it's the big issue. And it's about connecting all those dots. So we're bringing this in. And finally, there's this that for me is really important for my students. So this is whatever we do, these are the sort of the guidelines with which we do them. And we do a big thing with Theatre Lab is that we're willing to have those conversations, and we've always said that Theatre Lab, the lines of communication have to be open and have to be multiple. So whatever you can't speak about anything else, you bring it here and we'll make something of it. It may be good, it may be terrible, but we'll work with it. And one of the big surprises, just to mention it because, you know, this is a forum, one of the big surprises of the last few months has been a young girl who suffered from, she had a big breakdown and was diagnosed with PTSD because she was slut shamed online, and she was trolled so actively over a extended period of time. So we're actually talking about that a lot and trying to bring that into our play. So yeah,
we're really looking forward to it, Kirtana.
Well, I mean, the play that you're going to see, just to give you an idea, it's a play called What's Inside. And it was because all these kids were sort of trapped in their rooms and in their homes for the past 1.5 years. So What's Inside is really about just unpacking, you know, what's in this box, what's in my room, what's under my bed. This is it. But the children are doing a marvelous job of it. So, and I'm not interfering.
True. Who would like to share? Shaili, over to you, and then Paula, and then if Adjjima wants to add anything, we can wind up.
Yeah, I would just, in response to all the different thoughts that people have shared, say this, that I think the topic of our conversation today, embracing the arts in childhood, I guess it could be embracing childhood with the arts, instead, is a more sort of wider canvas that we could present, because it's not only the children embracing their childhood, but it's their families and everybody around them who's also, I mean, we always say, when you're with a child, you relive your own childhood and things like that. But I think it's important also, another point that I wanted to share here is when we're saying embracing the arts, how are we defining the arts? Coming to what Kirtana was talking about, forms, and there's so much baggage with this whole thing of traditional forms and cultural forms and what is theater, and so much of it has also been questioned in this whole online space. And here in India, we had, and in other parts of the world as well, there's just so much problem with the whole arts, the idea of the arts related to caste divisions, class divisions, gender divisions, ageism. I mean, there's it's just endless. And we only want to look at it in inverted commas, we give titles to forms and, put them on a pedestal. But I think the arts questioning themselves, the arts questioning the art forms itself is what will sort of take us on it being a continuum and not being fossilized or becoming a museum piece. And I think looking at that, when we say the arts, we mean creating spaces which respect each other, creating spaces where young people can express themselves, even if they don't make sense to themselves or anyone else, that's fine. Where they can feel safe, where they're not shamed for who they are or how they are or what they do, and being one with nature, and just having a more mindful existence. We've seen what the pandemic has done to the whole world, and it's just we just need to make more space for everyone else, emotionally, mentally, physically, in many ways. We saw that with the migrant crisis in India, and we can decide to live in our bubbles and silos or whatever else, but I don't think COVID is when the bubbles were created. I think, society lives in bubbles all the time. And I think it's time to just be aware of it. I don't know how much will burst, but the first step is to being aware of it. And I think the arts as a language, not restricted to a particular image or a particular sound, but using the artistic language to discover ourselves, to engage with each other, to have a more enriched life. I think that is the way I would look at, trying to reshape the work that I want to do in the future, and not put it in these boxes and frames and inverted commas of form, or this kind of theater or that kind of theater. Because ultimately, it's about human connections.
Yeah, arts as a way of expression. Yeah, that's what
connecting with yourself, connecting with everybody else. I think that is what is, the thing.
And I think another important thing that you pointed out is the responsibility that artists take. Where is the responsibility of the arts? That is another, because the other day we were talking about the footprints that our art productions leave when we are in a physical space. So that's another question that we need to address seriously, given more time. Paula, what would you say the changes that could be the positive changes, or what could be a system that could create more space?
I think that we need to have respect for arts engagement with young people. I think both work that is produced to be shared with younger audience, and both methodology that is used to engage young people. I think that's a massive thing. I think that historically there has been issues around whether half-hearted work is being produced for half-sized people. And I think that the half-sized people that we are talking about are probably the most honest critics that we'll ever work with, as we all know. And I think it's about us when we produce that work or when we create those engagement models, that we treat it with the same respect as the other work that we do. I also think that I'm always amazed at how when a piece that is produced for a younger audience, how we ignore the age recommendation that an artist puts on it. I mean, because if we say the work is created for 2 to 3 year olds, then only bring 2 to 3 year olds to that. That is who it's for. Whereas if we say we don't want anybody under the ages of 16 to see this play because of the material in it, everybody obeys that. But they don't whenever you're saying, you know, this show is not suitable for somebody under the ages of 6 years of age. It's about those first experiences being quality and respecting an artist to know that they are tailoring an engagement or a project for a specific age group because they have the skill set to do that. And because they know what it is that they are doing, and they have started off creating this work particularly for that audience. And that then means that you're coming at the whole engagement from a point of respect. And I think the more that we talk about it in that language, the more then I think we will start to generate respect for our practice and allow for structures to be put in place that are ultimately have at their core fluidity that allows for play, but that the structures and how we talk about it give it an earned respect. And we keep fighting that corner, because I think that's what we need to do. And I do believe that then respect will start to develop. And I think it's about us also finding a way of embracing the issues that are not allowing the type of engagement we would like within the education system and the type of engagement that we would like within the community. It's us having respect as well for the problems or the barriers to that, whether it's financial, whether it's teacher training, whether it's because the time pressures on a school system, or anyway, all of those issues that we give them a respect. And so I think that's then when fruitful, important conversations will happen.
Thank you for that, Paula. And with that, I would like to ask Adjjima, what does she feel that societal or educational systematic changes that can happen and have more engagement with the arts?
I feel that one thing that would be something that we'd like to do is to introduce the fact that art can start from home. Like the idea that Shaili actually mentioned about human connection, that first of all, it actually starts from the mother and the father and their children. I think when Shaili mentioned about the library, maybe she talks about the podcast collection that we created last year during the lockdown that invite the parents and child to read stories together at home, and then record those stories and send to us, and we kind of put it in a collection, and then that's probably what you meant by the library. And we found that such kind of project is something that we really enjoyed, and we felt that we could feel that it provides the play space during this very difficult time for the family to be able to spend time engaging on an artistic level together. And I think such kind of activities, if it could, this idea can be planted and cultivated from the very early on, like the very, very first place the children are born to, which is in their own home. Then it kind of like will start to kind of like expanding to other area within the societal sectors. Right. But again, also I believe that on the other spectrum, the policy, the governmental policy has got also, it can bring changes also to this, yeah.
Yes, absolutely. So thank you so much. With that, we have one last question here by Siloni. Siloni is a teacher at Indus Valley School, and she's also doing a couple of courses at the Academy in writing and script writing. I think she's also done the acting course. But her question is that, will there be, now this is towards the later this thing, that Could an online community and archive be created for those willing to access? This interactive store could include observations, experiences based on plans, strategies carried out for integration of the arts. Yes, Saloni, I would be happy to answer that. There are many communities like this on the net. And if you go ahead, you will find many organizations who've already created that. Having said that, today I take great pleasure in announcing that we are launching Arts at School program. We've already done a demo workshop with the teachers of more than 50 schools. And 31st July, we actually launched the formal program where the first batch of teachers will be taking this Arts at School program, where they will engage with artists from theater, writing, communication, even visual arts and pedagogical tools. So look out for that. It starts on 31st July. So any academicians or educators or even parents who are listening to this, they are most welcome to join it. The batch is very, very small. We are only taking in 24 for that session. But coming back to our session of Dramebaazi, of course, also Saloni, the creative arts also hopes to create an archive like that through this Arts at School program, slowly creating a complete archival library where observations, experiences, new projects of people like Kirtana, Adjjima, Paula, Shaili, all can be included and archived there together so that we can all learn from each other, inspire each other, and collectively make a lot of positive changes towards the society. And I feel that, you know, this whole competitiveness that is taught in schools, because it comes from a very different mindset, if that is taken away and it's kind of an equal society where we give equal space and so our theme also says accept, change, express, where we say accept all kinds of diversities, you know, embrace the new change and let all voices express exactly what Paula was saying, that every voice, whether it's a voice of a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old, let every and any kind of voice express themselves. So when we create that kind of space, we are looking towards a positive change. We are looking towards a society for whom the measurement of success is a smile on the face. Because you could see richest of people and they are the most gloomy ones, because obviously money can't buy happiness. It's something else that is bringing in happiness. So we have to find that something else right from the childhood, and that is something that we have to engage in right from childhood. But over to all of you, in case you want to say anything before we wrap up.
I'd like to say thank you to Ramanjit, to you and Shaili and all your team. Thank you for inviting us. And it's always wonderful to talk about theatre, and especially theatre for young audiences when we're all locked up in our little room. So it's really nice to talk to all of you. I loved meeting Paula and I loved meeting Adjjima. Thank you so much for the beautiful words and the provocations. I have a lot to think about now.
Thanks, Kirtana, and thank you, Shaili. But would you like to say something?
I think a big thank you to all the participants and the panelists here, to Paula, Adjjima, and Kirtana. I think gatherings like this where we come together, it's not only about the theme or the topic, but it's also to get to know each other. It's a start. Hopefully collaborations in the future. It could be 20 years down the line, you know. We don't, especially now we're measuring time so differently. Earlier, if you didn't do something for a week, you were like, oh my God, time has passed by. And now you've not done something for 6 months and you're just like, okay about it. So I think everything has become relative in a different way. Yeah. For many of us who've been living a very privileged life, I think the relativity for us has been different this year compared to a lot of other people for whom life from the day they were born was, everything was relative and challenging. So I think it's a wake-up call, and this is a great platform to start to getting to know each other, raising questions and not finding answers. I think that's the best thing. So apologies to attendees who came here for answers. because I think it's more important first to raise the questions, you know. Answers is a process, you know. And I think questions are the starting point. So thanks to all the attendees, some of whom have left because we said 1 hour and this has gone beyond an hour. But thanks to everybody who's listening on Facebook as well. The idea of a webinar is not just to give you more information about artists and their work, but it's also to trigger some thought. Hopefully we all start questioning the status quo, reflecting on what we hear from each other. And just move with more strength and inspiration from what we hear from other people. And I think that is so important to us artists as well in these times, where finding motivation and inspiration has, at least I can say for myself, has been extremely difficult. But when I participate in gatherings like this and hear from all of you, it just, you know, it's like an adrenaline shot, and then you feel like, no, I must do something now. You know, this is enough of procrastination. So thank you so much for giving me that energy with all the different things that you shared, you questioned. So thank you for that. Yeah.
Thank you, Shaili. Saloni, I think, says here, someone famously said that answers belong to the past, questions will truly take us to the future. Thank you for sharing that, Saloni. Well, with that, we come to the end of this session. I would like to share that, you know, Kirtana and everyone has been pointing out the processes or few projects that they've done. We at the Creative Arts Academy, our junior kids are bringing in campfire tales. They have been inspired by Neve O'Loughlin from Dublin, which is an Imaginate project, and they have created their camps. And then we said, tell us stories. So within these 3-4 days, they are creating some stories that they are telling in the tents. But all the stories, or most of them, are about space travel. So we have them in these tents, that homemade tents, and they are telling space travels. Again, Kirtana, Paula, Adjjima, you would like to know that these are stories created by them, and they are doing it the way they want to do it. But it's delightful. So please do join us on 24th to watch their performance. And the Creative Arts seniors have been addressing their concerns about fears, or what makes them angry, or what they are scared of. And they have written their own monologues and playlets. And trust me, we have barely interfered. We've not interfered with their writing, just, you know, kind of push them into writing it. And now they are also preparing their performance on their own. So that is also on 24th. And there's a whole lot of activities. So I request people from Thailand, Northern Ireland, Bangalore, and all of you who are listening, please do join in, spread the word, and let's celebrate arts together. Let's embrace the arts together at whatever age we are. Childhood, middle age, old age. I think I'm only getting younger. So thank you so much. With this, let's watch Lee Thompson's video before we say bye. Abanti, do we have that?
Hey, have you heard the news? Dramebaazi 2021 is coming soon. Dramebaazi is the International Arts Festival for the Young. This year the themes are Accept, Change and Express. Artists from India, UK, Nigeria, Thailand, Sri Lanka and Australia will all be taking part. Even Lee Thompson will be there on the 23rd of July. Don't miss it. It's Dramebaazi. I'll see you there. Hey, have you heard the news?
Thank you so much, Abanti. He is delightful, and he always creates something unique for us. So we're very, very grateful to him. With that, thank you, Paula, Adjjima, Kirtana, and Shaili, and thank you to the audience. We look forward to seeing more and more of you throughout this coming week till 25th, that is Sunday. So take care, keep the smiles on, and see you almost every day. Good night.